working for a PR company that had Thin Lizzy as one of their clients. And we got together when they held a party. I remember him standing in the corner of the room, flanked by all these guys. I later discovered were always with him. He was really charismatic, and he exuded sexuality. And he had a combination of a very masculine aura and kind of peekaboo coquettishness. I think that Philip and I both had a romantic vision of our marriage, and those visions didn't necessarily concord with the reality of our situation. He was fiercely protective of his private life. He never talked about us in interviews, and he wouldn't have encouraged me to do that either. He was a doting father, absolutely. He was very good at having fun with his kids, and he liked to take them out shopping, and he bought them beautiful clothes, and they always fitted. Even when he was away, he always knew exactly what size to buy. He called them his princesses. Philip was a very romantic man, but he wasn't a romantic in the traditional sense of chocolates and flowers and hearts. He was more of a romantic idealist, and he believed in myths and legends and heroes. I think it's an oversimplification to say that drugs were the only reason that we separated. But yes, they did create an environment in which many other problems arose. And it was hard, but I knew that my family was in trouble. It wasn't an issue that we never discussed, but what was really sad was that he wasn't ready to accept the kind of help that was on offer. He was a mass of contradictions. He was a troubled soul. But he had a lot of wonderful qualities, and when he was in a good humor, he was the best company that you could find. When he was in a foul humor, he was quite scary. We were in regular communication right up until the time that he died, and he saw the children very often.
Becoming a father and having the kids and stuff, and the responsibility of the marriage has really brought... I honestly didn't think I had the emotions that I have in me till I got married and had the children. You know, now, I know there's lots of single fellas looking and they're going, oh yeah. You know, but it's amazing when you do get married and have children, how much passion it can bring out and how defensive you become for your family.
He and I were together the night Sarah was born, and when she was born, he was really kind of a changed person there.
When you came in my life, you changed my world, my Sarah. Everything seems so right, my baby girl, my Sarah. You are all I want to know. You hold my heart, so don't let go. You are all I need to live. My love to you I'll give.
I think he was a little bit in awe of this thing, this baby thing, you know, to the point where maybe some of the songs got a little bit softer. He, you know, wrote the song Sarah, which was a beautiful song. You know, then the second girl came, Kathleen. He did the same thing and wrote a song about her. And he talked about them all the time. He was in love with his kids, absolutely in love with them. You know, he adored them.
And I saw this guy from the back, and he had a shopping basket with Ajax in it and toilet rolls and everything. And I said, right, and I went over, and I saw the side of his face, and it was Philip, you know, and I said, hi, Phil.
Jesus,
He used to call me and we had a big hug, you know. And he asked me what I was doing, and we passed a bit of time. And he says, I've got these two incredible little chicks outside in the car, in the back seat, going out and see them, you know. And I said, yeah, I'd like to leave it out, you know. He says, no, go on out and say hello. So he put me on the spot, so I didn't know what to do. So I said, okay, I'll see you, mate. And I walked out, and I said, what the hell, mate. And I walked over to the car, and it was his two daughters in the back seat. They were about 4 or 5-year-old. They're beautiful little girls, you know.
It's midnight in the big city, at the bar, drinking all on my own. I'm just thinking about that girl and me, how something's going wrong. Hey, mister, tell me, what's my saving grace? The backroom boys are all telling me I'm a borderline case.
My wife and myself have decided that I should give it a couple more years while it's gone for me, you know, and go for it, you know. But then eventually I want to opt out of the limelight as such.
I don't think Philip was ever going to be a monogamous person. He wanted a respectable thing as well. He wanted to have children and he wanted to have a wife. But he kind of wished that he could put his wife and children there, and that him being this rock star wasn't going to affect his family nest at home. And I think that is one of the greatest regrets of his life, believe it or not, the fact that his marriage was a failure. And in fact, I would say, in the last sort of year and a half, 2 years of his life, that affected him enormously, because if he had have had the security you know, of a family to go home to and live with, you know, things might have changed differently.
That was the one time I saw him literally locking himself in his room and not coming out. After he come home after seeing the children, he was devastated. I mean, you wouldn't see him for days. Maybe 2 days he'd be in his room until he went through whatever he had to go through, and then he'd come back out.
He seemed to change, his personality seemed to change. He became a bit down in the dumps, you know. He wasn't his usual jovial self, you know. And I think that's when the rot set in, you know.
Philip was very insecure. You have to remember his background. He was brought up by his granny after his mother had to leave him and, you know, get work and keep him going. And when his marriage broke up, he became, I'd say, you know, slightly paranoid about everybody leaving him.
I always remember Phil crying once. So it's the first and last time I ever saw Phil crying was when his uncle died. And we were in the front room at Kew, and Caroline was in Dublin, and he was, you know, he was very upset. And he mentioned then about his father. I mean, I still don't know the real story, you know.
He used to ask me questions, and I always told him that his father was a fine man. He never denied being his father, and that it was just a case of we didn't get married. That's all there was to it. And then when Philip wrote his first poetry book, I remember he was going to dedicate it to me. I said, I'd like you to dedicate it to your father. I said, for he was a good man, and he did want to marry me and take care of you. I said, but life didn't go that way. I said, but I just feel there's something in me. It was my way of saying, well, thank you for my lovely son. When he'd be home, he liked to come in this room and close the door and do whatever he had to do, you know. This was his own room. I never used to bother coming in when he'd be home. I always feel him in the room, you know, but I was so sad and so heartbroken at the time. I'd walk out and I'd just collapse into a chair, you know. But I'm okay now. I'm very proud indeed. I can't believe it. From our humble beginning, the two of us, we had nothing. And look what he left me. You know, he left me all this love, and he's so much loved. And so that does my heart good, and I'm able to cope with it.
anybody here with any Irish in them? Is there any of the girls who'd like a little more Irish in them? You got a bad reputation. That's the word out on the town.
I remember somebody asked him where he was from. And he said, well, when I'm in England, I'm from Ireland. When I'm in Ireland, I'm from Dublin. When I'm in Dublin, I'm from Crumlin. And when I'm in Crumlin, I'm from Leighlin Road.
He enjoyed being Irish, and he enjoyed being one of the first Irish people to break through that barrier. Before him, I think probably Van Morrison, at that time was constantly referred to as British. Rory Gallagher and Taste, in fact, they were constantly referred to as British. But I think with Philip, you know, that was it. There was no way you could say British. He was Irish.
I think he clung to his Irishness with a sort of vicious passion, because essentially he was fairly ruthless, you know. The Irishness was the overt wearing of the shamrock, you know, like stamping it on your chest was simply because he didn't know where he stood.
I've heard Bob Geldof speak about me and the Irish thing, you know, and he says I'm the big romantic. But like, you know, I'm not that, like I'm proud of being Irish, but I don't go around like with a little green, white and yellow flag sticking out of my head all the time, you know, drinking pints of Guinness all the time. This is my Bob Geldof impersonation.
Okay.
You have to.
Say goodbye, Philip.
He never could have lost his crown, and always will be, in that sense, King of Dublin. He's much more of a dub, you know. I don't know what the hell I am. And I love Dublin and love living in Dublin, but there's just more, I think there's more, certainly of what we think of Dublin. There's more of that in him. And maybe I envied him for that.
The Irish everyone. Down from the glen came the mighty men with their shields and their swords to fight the fight they believed to be right, overthrow the overlords. To the town where there was plenty, they brought thunder, sword and flame. When they left, the town was empty. Children would never play again.
Philip went on about being black, but did anyone ever really consider? He went on about being black in Dublin, but he was the whitest black man I've ever met, you know.
Oh, he played on the idea of being the black Irishman big time. He loved it, you know. He had a wonderful phrase about it, like what was it like being black growing up in Dublin? And he said it was no worse than having cauliflower ears, you know.
When I knew him in the 60s, I was never aware of this black thing. But I'd say in the early 80s, in the mid-80s, with the solo band thing, he was very aware of being black. And he hung around with a lot of black guys, black Americans, black English guys. And it was like he proved he was Irish, but now he also wanted to acknowledge that he was black.
We just kind of hit it off, and I knew right away that there was something special about the guy, you know, because, I mean, very few black guys made it to be the leader of a rock band and actually be consistent. And Phil was, besides Hendrix, to me, was the only one really.
There are people in the town that try to put me down. They say I don't give a damn. But the people in the town that try to put me down are the people in the town that could never understand the flame.
Hendrix was a genius. He was a front runner. You know, he showed that black people could be sex symbols, you know, instead of just puppets. And he attacked you, you know. He attacked the camera, he attacked the media.
And one night after having a drinking bout, he actually kind of freaked out in the studio and he went into a really black rap. He kind of grabbed the microphone and went, "You bastards don't understand fuck all about me," and like the amount of shit I had to take. And he said that, in a way, he said it was what drove him to be what he is.
Are you ready to rock? Are you ready to rip it up? You know what I'm talking about? Are you ready to give it up? Are you ready to dance? Are you ready to hit the floor?
I was tired of hearing rock and roll stars saying how sorry they were for themselves, you know, like how they disliked fame and how they were bothered. I jumped to it, you know, I was famous. I thought, great, the women are after me, you know. Like, people want to buy me free drink, you know, they want to treat me, they want to take me here, like, they want to take me there. Great. And, you know, I really ran for it, hook, line and sinker.
Philip was a rock star when he was cleaning his teeth.
Philip actually needed to be one. And so the leathers and the, are you out there, and all this stuff was like from, like, you know, 8 in the morning till, well, 8 in the morning whenever he went to bed.
He was always a bit flash. He told me a story when I met him once. He said, I'm after crashing the Rolls Royce. I was never very good at the driving. He says, but, you know, I'm not really flash. It was just a Rolls.
We felt that we'd taken it as far as we could go. And rather than it be a charade, you know, like that, we go out and do a parody of ourselves. We figured that was never the style it is, you know, so we just thought that we'd do this last tour and really give this last tour the works, you know, really go out with a bang.
The problem was his Thin Lizzy were his roots, and he lived for them. But at the end, it was just becoming a nightmare to try and keep the whole thing together. Financially, personality-wise, everything, and it had run its course. And it left with some dignity.
I think that after Thin Lizzy broke up, that was his family, that was his whole life, that was his gang, and they were his friends. And Phil tended to socialise very much with the people he worked with, even the road crew or, you know, whoever was around the band were his pals. You had to be Phil's pal to be in on the whole thing. So when all that fell apart, I don't think he ever recovered.
He said his marriage was breaking up, his band was breaking up, all at the same time. It's an awful lot of stuff to take when you think about it.
Philip's big problem was when Thin Lizzy finished, he only knew one lifestyle, and that was being a rock and roll star.
There is a demon among us whose soul belongs in hell, sent here to redeem us.
Artists like Jimi Hendrix, for example, they like to go to the edge and then come back and go, are you experienced? And, you know, tell you about the experience being out there. And he did it for, you know, okay, sometimes selfish reasons, but other times it was for artistic reasons. And like some people drowned in the sea, and some people fall off mountains, and some people crash cars, some people die of drugs, you know. Now, I wouldn't like to glorify drugs at all, but I wouldn't like to totally say, you know, people who take drugs should be taken out and shot and hung.
It actually started in Paris when we were doing the Black Rose album. And it just kind of seemed that from nowhere there was a lot of drug dealers and drug people around us.
I wish I had known the signs of the heroin thing, but you see, I didn't, because I wasn't doing it, so how could I know? I didn't know. And up to the very end, I didn't know. I didn't know he was sticking it in his feet and all that. I had no idea.
But she is still captured by the spell.
Philip always had this thing, he said to me, Jim, I have it sussed. Like it was under control. He had all, you know, drugs sussed, he had all drinks sussed, but he never had them sussed, no more than anybody else, you know. He thought that nothing could happen to him. He thought he was immortal.
You know, there's no point in trying to lecture him because he'd just sit there. He actually said thanks to me after I gave him this big lecture. But you knew as soon as you turned your back, it wasn't going to make a blind bit of difference.
When he did something, he did it to excess. He reckoned he was a hard man from Crumlin, and he could take anything.
As he used to say himself, it's not Mr. Lynott, it's Mr. Why Not.
Phil said to me that he would rather go out in flames than die of old age. You know, he said to me that his two biggest heroes was Elvis Presley and Jimi Hendrix. And he said he would rather go out like those two than be around and fade out. He didn't want to fade out.
I saw him 3 weeks before he died, and at that point he told me that was it. He was giving it up. He didn't want to know anymore. And I believed him. He brought out a guitar. He started strumming some chords on the guitar. He talked about, you know, we really ought to get back together again. Let's write some more songs. You know, he started to talk in real positive overtones, and so by that point I'd already been okay for about a year. Right? So, you know, really I just thought, well, okay, well, this is just going to be a matter of, you know, a small bit of time here. He's going to get himself back together again. You know, I will. You know, we'll come back together. We'll write a few songs, and then we'll talk about it and see what happens. But we never got a chance to.
He asked me to spend Christmas in London, and I said, no, come home. And he said, if you come over and we have the children here and we have a good Christmas, I promise you we'll come back to Ireland for New Year. So I said, okay. So when I got to London, he had the big Christmas tree, all the presents, everything was grand. He had some funny little toys that you wind up, and you'd leap up and down, and he said, now they're for their stockings. And everything was great. And all of a sudden, he just took ill. And Christmas Day at about 3 o'clock, I wasn't satisfied, and we were ringing around for doctors, and Caroline rang to wish me and Philip and the children a happy Christmas. And I said, I started crying on the phone. I said, Caroline, Philip is not well at all. And she said, I'll be there in an hour and a half. And she arrived, and she said she'd already booked to get Philip into a clinic. And with that, it all happened, and they took Philip away. From the time we entered the hospital, I never left it until the last.
When he was in hospital, I went in, and one of the nurses said to him, "You're a singer, Philip. Sing me a song." And she heard him making some sound, and she put her ear down close to his head, and he was singing My Way.
His last words to me were, "Merciful Jesus, what have I done to you?" He did.
I know them too well. The girl's a fool, she broke the rules, she heard him lie. This time he will break down. She's lost his trust, and so she must all is lost. The system has broke down. Romance has broke down. This boy is cracking up. This boy has broke down.
In my flat, I've got photographs of Thin Lizzy on the wall, you know, and every now and again I just become very aware of the whole situation, and I look up and I just go through all these memories in my head, you know.
You know, I don't have pictures of people being addicted to drugs and falling down or anything like that. It's always me looking to my right, and there's Phil giving me the impish grin on stage.
I think about Phil every day, you know. I mean, it's not a day goes past when you don't think of Phil, you know. Because, I mean, you grew up with Phil, you grew up with me, you know, so great mates for years.
Our relationship was more like a brother thing in a way, because it was a very much a love-hate thing. I had a lot of love for him, and I know he did for me.
Ever since that, I keep having these dreams every single night without Phil. Not unpleasant dreams, very pleasant ones, in fact. The total opposite of what you would think. You know, oh, you're up on stage, and you know, all these, and he keeps coming saying, "No, I'm not dead, I'm playing." And we all get up and we have a jam and stuff like that.
Sometimes I just walk into a hotel room, like throw my case on the floor or something, and I start talking to him. You know, I walk around the room having conversations with him.
Oh, I miss him a hell of a lot, yeah. I dream about him a lot, you know. I still dream about him as if it's real, you know. It's weird.
The last few days of his life are etched on my memory. But that's not what I like to focus on. I prefer to think of the wonderful sense of humour that he had. He was witty and really quite mischievous. And underneath all that bravado, there was a very tender man.
Thin Lizzy was a band that I was in for, well, 13 years, and we were very successful. I thank everybody for making us successful, and I'm very proud of the fact that I was in Thin Lizzy. Until the next time, bye-bye.
Wanna hear you singing? You out there?